And here we go again. Now it's Meet the Press, doing the same thing. Instead of trying to figure out what are the most important questions to be asking and taking some responsibility for not being prepared to ask them, they're just going to keep blaming the president about everything. Listen to this. This is insanity.
Healthcare experts acknowledge the necessity of getting people back to work, but warn that moving too early could invite a second wave with disastrous consequences. Meanwhile, President Trump, eyeing the election in November, is grasping at any idea to stop the virus and get the economy back on track quickly.
He's grasping. Yeah, he has to be, it's like he's playing tennis on both sides of the court. Because the reporters at the White House aren't even medical reporters. They're just political reporters there to bother him and be against anything he says and not be able to contribute to elevate the discussion. They should be having a three-way between Trump, the medical experts from the White House, and the reporters who should have enough knowledge to figure out how to ask a good question while the president grasps. Is grasping bad? It gives everyone an opportunity to improve the discussion. That's all it does. Instead, they're just making it out to be something worse than it is.
Quickly.
Do you take any responsibility for these 50,000 deaths that have happened in this country?
I think we do.
What kind of insanity is that? Do you take responsibility? It's his fault, huh? It's the president's fault. No, you know what? It's the media's fault. The media covered up the epidemic in 2017, 2018. They covered it up. We had a flu epidemic in the United States in 2017, 2018. The numbers were reported lower than they really were, and they were still high. They were the highest in 10 years, the number of deaths to seniors. The media never made a mention that it was seniors that were dying at 83%. They just said seniors were in danger, but then so were young people and so were middle-aged. They said everyone was in danger. But there was no rush to get face masks for emergency workers, no one wore masks. I mean, who was responsible for that? The media let that one go. So we lost 2 years of preparation. If you want to blame anybody, blame the media. I figured out there was a senior flu epidemic going on in 2017, 2018 by watching the news reports. But the news reporters were not pushing. They weren't noticing how high a percentage of seniors were dying. So they just said, oh, we have a flu epidemic. Nobody questioned anything. It was business as usual. As a record number of seniors were dying, it was business as usual. Whose fault was that? Now they're blaming them for 50,000. This is just nuts. It's all nuts. Ask good questions. Elevate the discussion. And let's talk more about the lungs. Not just the coronavirus, the lungs. Breathing gets difficult. The virus invades. It attacks. What can they put in with the ventilators that might fight the virus? They're like trying to find a vaccine. The blood plasma maybe is working. They want to find a pill. They're very drug-centric. Just one thing, it's very important to remember, all these reporters who aren't even medical reporters, okay? Pharma probably pays for half of all advertising that you see on TV, especially primetime TV. So it's almost suspicious how there's been no discussion from the reporters about possible home remedies that are safe, that aren't dangerous. Just something that you could add to oxygen that might help. Are we to believe you can't add anything to oxygen to help somebody fight a virus that's in the lungs? That you have to give them a pill, or you have to give them something in the blood, or you have to give them a drug? That's their whole focus. And I'm very scared by that, because this just seems like its own kind of conspiracy. I want to know, what can you put in air that might help? I at least want the questions asked. They're not even being asked. Aren't you curious? I mean, an onion makes your eyes water. Garlic is known to be some type of antibiotic, raw garlic. I've mentioned in the past that, you know, grave robbers used to wear raw garlic around their neck to avoid getting sick. So why, I mean, is it possible that there are naturally growing things around us that if put into the air or mixed into the air that's breathed in might help fight? Maybe not even when it's full, maybe even before it gets fully engulfed in the body. Maybe when it's a lot less, like when it's just starting out in the body. When people have symptoms or their antibodies are up or there's antigens, but it hasn't really, I don't hear that ever from the media. All I hear is like what this news reporter said, 50,000 Americans died, are you going to take responsibility? What kind of an idiotic question is that? Who was that reporter? Are they a medical reporter? Did they contribute any kind of a question or idea to elevate the discussion? Of course not. It's just about blaming the president all the time. It's very scary. I'm really afraid because if this, I consider it acts of treason. I really do, by the media. Contribute to the discussion. I want to know. I want to know about ventilators. When the ventilators are actually, and when they're set correctly, because apparently they didn't set them correctly early on, and a lot of people were dying, and I don't know that the reporters were talking about that. So aren't they responsible for deaths early on because they didn't encourage the medical industry to make it public what they were trying to do so that things maybe would have happened quicker? But I want to know, pepper, onion, garlic, some other naturally occurring product can, if sliced thinly so that it comes out in the air, you know, and is mixed in with the ventilator. Could that do anything? Has anyone ever, I mean, has it been tested? Or are tests only for drugs? Is that what this is all about? That we only want to talk about drug solutions, drug care, not health care, but drug care? Is that why the president's being attacked? Because the president is open to a solution. And I think that's making everyone nervous. The president doesn't care what the solution is. He's not grasping, he's asking. He's just asking. And he's being attacked. Who are these people attacking him? Why? Are they afraid that there's some low-cost solution so they're not going to get massive amounts of funding? Is that what's going on here? I just want to know that tests are being done, not just for vaccines. The blood plasma, fine. That's another option. But it's about breath and breathing also. Can anything be done to help the lungs so the lungs don't get damaged? We can't mix anything in with the oxygen that would not be lethal. I'm not saying what it is. I'm just asking, why isn't it being asked? Why aren't these reporters asking? Instead, they're asking the president if he wants to take responsibility for 50,000 deaths when these reporters are too stupid to just ask basic logical questions. When does that start happening? You got to, this is like a, death by 1,000 bites is what they're doing to the president. They're just, every day, it's more and more the same, till eventually I already have friends who are brainwashed. I voted for Hillary Clinton. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I changed after I saw how my mom was killed in the ER, basically, by an ER nurse who broke up the 15 laws during the 2017-2018 flu epidemic. And then I saw the lovely state of California with its super Democrat majority not give a crap about my mom, which made me realize they care more about undocumented and the newly arriving and them getting instant entitlements than they do about our seniors. That's why so many seniors are dying in California in the nursing homes, because they've so relaxed the quality of care that they're more vulnerable. This is the Democrat plan. It's to replace seniors with much younger undocumented migration. Only 5% of all undocumented are 55 and older. Whereas in California, it's actually 27.5% of the citizens are 55 and older. So The Democrats want to replace older people who are more likely to vote Republican, and I think we can see why, with much younger people who are going to vote Democrat. There's even I've even studied a statistic that showed that people who voted Democrat when they were 17, it's like a really high percentage. Then when they were 35, it was still pretty high. But suddenly in their mid-50s, it just drops like a rock and they go Republican. And I think we know why. It's just a Democrat plan to always want to bring in younger people because they have them for 30 years or 20 years. So don't be fooled. They're not asking the most logical questions, and that's what you should be. Ask people. If you know a reporter, ask them. Why can't we slice garlic up into thin slices and mix it with a ventilator so that when it goes into the oxygen, you got to get the dosing right, obviously. That's what we would want our doctors and our ER people for them to do that. Not because they have the ventilators. There's all this secrecy over the ventilators, and no questions about the ventilators. Like what can be done? So let's just leave this guy alone and focus on when he grasps, elevate the discussion. That's what the reporters should be doing. The non-medical reporters who are more political and just want to fight Trump at every turn. Why are they even there? Why are the non-medical reporters even in the room? Why? It's insanity.